Okay, we'd like to call the meeting to attention, please. And thank you all for coming out. I know everybody's hunkering down for the big storm tomorrow, but fortunately we have Milford TV here, and we've asked people that couldn't come tonight to send in questions, so we have a whole bunch of questions so people can get that kind of information. And so thank you for coming. We have here tonight John Erickson, the building commissioner with the Building and Inspections Department, and Paul Mazzuchelli, the health officer from the Board of Health. And this whole thing is Citizens for Milford is presenting a continuing series of helping Milford citizens understand what the duties and responsibilities and services provided by the different town departments and how they can obtain and use these services. Our goal is to provide direct access to the heads of these departments for you, our Milford citizens, especially in, like we have tonight, a very informal and non-time pressured environment. So for those watching on Milford TV, it's to provide a forum in which they can send in their questions in advance of this meeting, and in keeping with our mission to help citizens become involved and officials get direct feedback from the people that need their services. John?
Very good. That's Steve Treadle that was just speaking, and I'm John Seaver, the other co-chair of Citizens for Milford. And thank you for that introduction. And we can, we can open it right up to questions from citizens.
First, we're going to have them explain what their departments do.
Okay. Well, why don't we start with Mr. Mazzuchelli, and why don't you give us a brief overview of the health department, the tasks and responsibilities, and including the trash area too, up on Cedar Street.
Right. There's really, there's no brief explanation of the Board of Health, I don't think, but just a little bit of trivia. I'm sorry when you put a mic in front of me, I just keep going on and on. But the first health officer was Paul Revere back in 1799. He was, if anybody ever been to the north end, you can still see the house where he was living in. He used to come out there and smell all the horse manure and garbage that was strewn all over the place, and he saw flies and other vermin come about, and he said, we're going to do something about this. So he made some rules and regulations, and from then on they appointed him the first health officer not only of Massachusetts but of the country at the time. So that's just a little bit of information. And when people say, well, what do you do? I work for the Board of Health. And well, you inspect restaurants, you inspect septic systems, you condemn homes. And I answer it this way too. You know, when you wake up in the morning, how public health touches everyone's life several times a day. You wake up in the morning, the first thing you do is go to the bathroom, flush the toilet. That contaminated water now has to go someplace. Public health has something to do with that. You take a drink of water. The water from the rain or the rivers and streams is not always pristine and potable. Public health has something to do with that. You're all healthy. You all have your vaccines and inoculations that you needed. That's public health. You wake up, it's your trash day or your recycling day. You put it out. Public health has something to do with that. So no matter what you do throughout the course of a day, public health touches your lives in so many ways. And there's three branches. There's the federal branch, there's the state branch, and there's the local branch. And like they all say, you know, all government is local. And the most important is local because it touches you every day. And that's what we do. And what, as a Board of Health in Milford, let's say, we have a very experienced Board of Health, not only with myself, but with the three members that we have. And what we don't want is complacency. We always try to raise that bar to make sure that we go above and beyond the general mandated responsibilities. Because what we are, in essence, any Board of Health in the state of Massachusetts is an agent of the state. We're delegated by the state legislature like a school committee would be. So we more or less, our bosses are the Department of Public Health statewide, but our main bosses are the taxpayers because those who support the local Board of Health. So we do have that authority, and again, we try to use it to improve the general welfare and the lives of our citizens every day, and also the guests who come to visit Milford every day. And again, to say that we just do certain amounts, restaurants and housing and whatnot, that's fine, that's the general mandate, but we'd like to go above and beyond that. And hopefully through the questions that come here, we could explain that a little better.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Paul.
Paul, before you pass it over to John, just keep it for one more second. One of the things that we like to do with Citizens for Milford, we ask our guests to walk the audience through a typical day of, in your case, the
Right.
health director. So, you come in the morning.
You come in the morning, and there's certain mandated things that we have to do. Milford has roughly about 140 eating establishments. That includes, your mom and pop all the way to your main franchises, to your big supermarkets like, your Super Stop and Shop or Shaw's or whatever, to your smaller ones. So they have, general laws, state laws said they're going to be inspected at least minimum 2 times a year. In Milford, we go 4 to 5. So we have a general list of what we have to do for food establishments. And then, of course, throughout the course of a day, we get several complaints, be it a nuisance complaint. My neighbor's rubbish has been out for several days, and it's not only unsightly, but it's starting to cause flies and odors and whatnot, so we have to answer that. We may have a tenant complain that the landlord wasn't repairing property, on time, or because a lead paint complaint or something like that. So these are the things that we do that we added to that day. So the typical day may be your general mandated responsibilities, but with that, other calls may come in that we would have to answer itself. And then, of course, there's general administration work we got to do. Pay the bills, make sure rubbish is being run right, make sure the recycling tonnage is kept down to a higher standard, but the rubbish is down to a minimum. Our flu clinics, our pneumonia clinics, so there's the medical aspect of it as well as the environmental aspect. So it does keep you busy. What do they say? Well, we're like a one-legged man in a butt-kicking contest. You just keep going and going and going.
Right. Well, you must have meetings at night or meetings
We
with
have
the town
meetings at night. We have
administrator.
meetings we meet two times a month, and we also try to meet if there's an important situation coming up that we'd like to discuss and plan it properly. We also would meet then too.
So a Milford citizen could just come in on their own, or they could set up an appointment. You must have appointments
Sure,
that they
yeah.
make. If it's
Yeah,
more of a
if we try, if we could see them then, we'd like to see them then have them come back and forth to the town hall. Again, we're there to serve them.
and you follow up with the citizens' questions through phone calls. Sometimes you
Phone
might
calls,
go up to the house.
emails, yeah, of course, that's figured at that too. Throughout the course of a morning when we come in, there's like several emails already waiting for us with various questions that people may have.
Okay, that's all good. Okay,
Thank you, Paul.
thank you, Paul. Thank you. We'll now give it to John
Johnny?
Erickson, and he can tell us what, you can give us a nice overview of what your tasks and responsibilities are, and then walk us through a typical day that you encounter.
Okay, sure. Thank you, John Erickson, Building Commissioner for the town of Milford. Naturally, the first thing that the Building Commissioner does is enforce the state building code. Building codes were, I guess, inspired to give a little bit of Paul's history, out of the Roman fires back in the day. And they're designed to keep people safe within buildings. The first building code in Massachusetts didn't come out until 1973, so it's really a fairly new standard. Buildings have been built for hundreds of years, but that's where, the official state building code came in. Prior to that, for a few years, there was a local town building code. So again, the primary purpose of the building code is to keep people safe within buildings, and the biggest safety net is to be able to get out of buildings to the public way safely. So what that encompasses is a permit's required for any construction, reconstruction, alteration of a building, and it's widely encompassing most of the safety features, of course, the structural loads, but more than that, or along with that, egress issues. Again, keeping the people safe means sprinkler systems, which is under the building code, which a lot of people might think is under the fire department, but it's not. Initially, it's under the building code. Along with fire alarm systems, means of egress, widths of the hallways to get you out of the buildings, width of the stairs, dimensions of the stairs, size of the doors, the number of people that can be in a building. This is a good example. This has a limit, if I remember right, 100 people. And it's posted here someplace, which is one of the things that we do at the building department. Any place of assembly is required to be inspected annually, every year by our department, and this is a place of assembly. Again, I think from memory, it's 100 people, but that's the point. Other places of assembly that need to be inspected: restaurants, nightclubs, and various other uses. Multifamily houses is another type of structure that needs to be inspected periodically. And again, the purpose is being safe. When you have a multifamily house being 3 or more, and whether it's 3 or 300 or 3,000, the biggest point of the building code is to keep people safe. So the role of the building commissioner is certainly to permit, inspect existing properties, new properties, and then it goes further than that. The building commissioner enforces the zoning code, which is your land use regulations. In the town of Milford, well, most towns it's called the zoning bylaw, and that deals with the intensity of use, physical size constraints. We have maybe 9 zoning districts. I don't know off the top of my head. I'd have to recap, but we have industrial zones, we have residential zones, we have commercial zones. Those zones have physical constraints as far as how big a building can be, how far it needs to be from the setbacks, lot lines, parking requirements, and what the allowable uses are in a zone. Residential is almost self-explanatory. Commercial and industrial can be a little more intertwined as to what the actual use is, or debatable as to what is allowed. I don't want to say debatable, that's probably not the right phrasing, but it's a little more cloudy. But, so the primary function of the building commissioner is to enforce the building code. Secondarily, we have the zoning regulation, which is, again, intertwined. And then there are other regulations that we have to enforce. As some of us are well tuned in to, we have the what's referred to the Architectural Access Board regulations, which governs accessibility requirements for persons with disabilities. And that's sort of a dual jurisdiction as the building commissioner. That's my role to enforce that. But at the same time, there's a parallel agency with the state that also enforces those regulations. So with that said, a typical day in the building department, we get there in the morning. As Paul said, there's a number of emails that we have to answer, and we have an ongoing stack of building permit applications. Permitting inspections being our primary duties and functions. That's ongoing, that's every day. We're required to, act on those in a timely manner. So that's pretty much our top priority in the morning. In the morning is when I have my one part-time building assistant, and that's when we, collaborate and churn out most of the permitting and plan reviews. In that time, we'll have contractors, homeowners, architects, a number of people calling, emailing, dropping by the office, whether it's a quick question or a little bit more involved. So we pretty much deal with those as they come in. I can't think of a time that somebody's come in and we haven't made time for them. It's, I guess as Paul said, we're there to serve, we're there to help. In between that, we're out in the field, we're doing inspections, whether they're complaint inspections as far as the zoning bylaw on what is or isn't allowed to be done. We're certainly doing construction inspections throughout the day. Typically, both myself and my assistant will go out in the morning, and I'll go out again in the afternoon doing more inspections. In addition to that, we have I have a full-time assistant zoning enforcement officer, and her actual responsibility is helping me enforce the zoning bylaw. And that's, again, a full-time job, and that would be complaints ranging, I don't want to say ranging, but for example, somebody has an unregistered car, which is not allowed, she'll act on that. We have a complaint of a nuisance property where there's too much debris strewn about. That's something that we'll enforce, and that's a new regulation to our department. Prior to 2012, when town council sponsored an article for town meeting, my department didn't have any enforcement over nuisances like that. We had it over, in nuisances being basically trash, overgrowth, too much junk basically in someone's yard. The Board of Health had their regulations, and we collaborated on that for a year, and we still do, but I didn't have anything that I could cite someone for, and now I do, and that's town council's nuisance bylaw, which again was enacted in 2012. So again, I have a full-time assistant zoning enforcement officer, and that's her focus, which is the zoning bylaw and to an extent nuisance properties, but to some extent I get more involved with those than some of the more common zoning violations.
John, just a quick question for John before we pass it over to Paul. So your position is an appointed position by the Board of Selectmen.
Yes.
So that, and so on a day-to-day basis, you might have to discuss or report to the town administrator. Is that how it works? And then any issues you have, he would bring up with the Board of Selectmen. And is that generally how it would work?
No, that's really not how it works. I kind of equate being, the department head in the Department of Inspections to being self-employed, which I was for many, many years. And that's, you come in and you know what needs to be addressed, how it needs to be addressed. You know what regulations you're enforcing. You know what your duties are as far as acting on permits and other things. There's really little to no interaction with the Board of Selectmen. The few times I've been to the Board of Selectmen has been to give them an update on number of permits, department activity, complaints. One time to present a proposed realignment of permit fees for plumbing. But, unlike private industry, it's, municipal government isn't where your appointing authority or boss is part of your daily activity.
Okay.
And that holds true for, the town administrator. To me, the town administrator is an avenue which we communicate from the board to myself and back and forth.
He's sort of the communication link between the board and you. So if you have, in your daily work, you come up with an issue that you need to talk to town council Jerry Moody, a legal issue, will you just go right in and say, hey, Jerry, let's discuss this? So you would go directly to the town council, for instance?
Oh, absolutely. Town council and I speak weekly, and sometimes daily, and sometimes multiple times per day.
And that work, the same thing with the town planner or the town engineer, same thing? It's a sort of a collegial kind of relationship?
Oh, there's much collaboration in the town hall. As far as town council is what I rely on for zoning bylaw interpretations and actions. There's actually, I can't think of an instance where I've had any conversation with town council about building related issues, building code, policies, procedures, but certainly with zoning, because that's much more a topic where I need to discuss it with town council, and primarily because, well, I don't want to say primarily, for a number of reasons. So if I'm going to court, depending on how far it escalates, I need town council support at some point in the process. And so we need to be in agreement on whatever the issue is. I'm not going to take an action that town council disagrees with, because it's just going to be an effort in futility. As far as collaboration with the other departments, I talk to the Board of Health, Paul, who's right next door, multiple times per week. Larry Duncan, a town planner, pretty much daily. Yeah, if you're gonna round off daily. Town engineer, not as much. That's more for conservation issues, to make sure that if there's a project going on where there's wetlands, that they've taken, the right measures to go to conservation and get their approval.
Oh, we've got a zoning violation.
It might be a sign violation.
Whose job is that? That the health board or the building
I think
commission?
that's signs.
Sorry, yeah.
So,
We do want to talk about the new sign bylaw. but
we can get to that
Maybe that's just
whenever you're ready.
sort
That was a
of
precursor.
toast.
I think I saw Steve pull the string.
Okay, well, that's
So, yeah, we collaborate certainly daily, as town departments.
okay.
And that goes with police and fire, too. The large majority of the firefighters and the police know that the issues we're having in town, and if, in their course, in their job, they come across something that just doesn't, looks a little out of the ordinary, they communicate that to us, and we'll go and investigate.
Okay, great. I think Paul had...
Yeah, I just, when John was mentioning the nuisance bylaw, just to give you an example, it's like the reason why that was created, or one of the reasons why, a few people have been calling the Board of Health in the past about, let's say, a neighborhood property where the grass is tall, maybe, 6, 7, 8 inches, where everybody else is all nice and cut. And they'd call the Board of Health, and at the time, we thought that we had some sort of authority over that. We would write the property owner a letter and asking him to cut the grass because it has the potential of being a potential health problem where it could be conducive to rodents and insects and other vermin. So one time there was this one particular individual who didn't listen to us, so we ended up taking him to court. And it come to find out, when I went to housing court, the judge so eloquently said that public health does not do ugly. And it's not a health hazard, it just doesn't look nice. And it was, we had, here I am using the Board of Health regulations to cite this, and, how can people get sick? Well, it can attract, but does it? Well, I don't see any now, but it could. Well, you got to get this is a true story, you got to get a zoologist to come in and to make sure that that particular property caused that raccoon or a skunk to come in that property. I checked with other attorneys, they go, yeah, you're right. I checked with our State Department of Public Health attorney, they go, that's a health code. It's not a nuisance code. You use your nuisance bylaw. Well, we don't have one, because there are, cities and towns that do have a certain regulation where grass can't be above a certain height and whatnot, and that's enforced by nuisance. So that's how that came about. So I don't want people to get offended when they call the Board of Health and we said we can't do that because we don't do ugly.
Yes, okay. I just one question on Paul. So you're not an elected, you're appointed.
I'm appointed.
But you're appointed by the
Board of Health.
The Board of Health.
Right, which is an autonomous board.
It's an autonomous board. Unlike most of the people at Town Hall, most of the people are appointed by the selectmen.
Right, you have the Board of Health, you have the assessors.
They're separate.
Yeah, they're separate. A school committee would be separate. I don't believe there's any other. In the town clerk, which is an individual election.
It's all these little separate groups. It's incredible, how you if there's ever a conflict, how you resolve that.
Right.
Because it's not really clear.
You see, if anybody wants to complain on me or the office or anything like that, they go to my 3-member board, who's elected by the public, who then has to answer to the general public as well.
Yeah. Okay. That's all excellent background, and maybe we're going to take some time and open it up to the general public to ask some questions. And Amy here is going to come around with the microphone. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
First, we want to give the people that showed up.
Okay.
Well, first, thank you, fellas, for coming out tonight. I'm interested in your
Can you tell us who you are?
Oh, thank you. I'm Harold Rhodes from Precinct 2. I'm really interested, it's like maybe a two-part question. First, in each of your departments, what do you consider to be, something that you're particularly proud of, something that's successful over the years that you've been in your department, something that, you think really has worked out well for the citizens of Milford? And then on the other side, what's the thing that keeps you up at night, the big concern, the thing that just isn't making any progress that you feel, wow, this really is something that's open that should be, improved upon?
Yeah, thank you, Harold. I can, just if you don't mind. Throughout the course of the years that we've been here with the town of Milford and through its Board of Health, we've made some improvements, I think, with the town, starting with the curbside recycling and curbside rubbish pickup. Just for a bit of information, Milford was the first municipality in Worcester County to have mandatory curbside recycling. The second in the state, first was Jamaica Plain. We did that. We also were light years ahead with the tobacco dangers. We got a $70,000 grant. The Commissioner of Public Health actually came out to the town hall to give us that grant money, where we had a campaign for anti-smoking. Our food service establishments, we had a mandatory training where at least one person per shift had to be trained in food safety. That way there, where an inspection is only good for that point in time, what happens after, we have no idea, so we wanted to have that continuous work in progress where we had somebody that was at least qualified to help us with the inspection for their particular establishment throughout the course. We really did have, not to pat myself, I don't want this to be a pat in the back fest, but we did do quite a bit. Our mosquito control program that we have, we not only have the Central Mass Mosquito Control District, which I'm one of the 5 commissioners on, but we also started that program probably back in the 80s, where we had our own individual mosquito control. For those of you who live up on the up part of Purchase Street, the Reservoir Estates, I believe it was called back then, with the Violet Circle, Fox Lane, and whatnot, inundated with mosquitoes at the time, and we more or less decided to have our own program, which we did. But like I said, it's a continuous work in progress, like I mentioned before. And any time something comes up that we have to deal with, we will. Hence the Article 37. When we found out that throughout the course of years, tuberculosis numbers were actually 0 for the past 40 years. Back in 2005, we saw we had 9 new cases. Of course, if we know anything more than the norm is considered an epidemic. So I would consider that an epidemic in tuberculosis. And what we did is we not only got our nursing staff, which is the visiting nurses, onto that a little more, but we also felt as though what's causing this, what would happen? And you had, to be politically correct, we had a lot of international residents move into town, and there were were overcrowding, and one of the ways to spread this disease is through overcrowding in enclosed, confined spaces, and we handled it that way too. So another thing we did too was to address the tuberculosis with John's help too, which at the time he is a school committee member, where Milford, again with the international students that we have in our town, we had no tuberculosis policy at all. And what we did is now we have a policy now where the Board of Health designed it, passed it through the school committee, and right now anybody that would come from a country that has a high prevalence of tuberculosis now has to get screened. Not so much the actual time test, but an actual screening, where the pediatrician would then order the time test if they felt as though that this individual needed further testing.
But how would you find out who these people are? If they move to Milford?
Right.
From a particular country?
Right. Well, we get the number of cases. We know who they are through the Department of Public Health.
So the state reports it to you?
Exactly. Okay. Exactly, right. So now, so that's, these are just, off the top of my head, the things that we've done to help improve above and beyond the general mandated responsibilities.
So what are things that you're concerned about?
Right now, what we're concerned about right now is again, if there's never a vaccine for a disease or for something that is considered a disease or an epidemic, the best alternative is education and awareness. And with the opiate or the substance abuse problem that we have, not only throughout the country or in the state, but right in our own town, the Board of Health is getting involved with that. We're trying to implement an education and awareness program starting with the younger children, because right now we want to be more of proactive than reactive. The policemen would hopefully arrest the people who are pushing these drugs. Amy Leone and her staff and counselors more or less react to the situation, but to be proactive, we'd like to more or less catch these individuals before they start. Hence, we got that theory from the anti-tobacco campaign that we had that seemed to work quite well.
You go into the elementary schools?
Right. We sent away for a curriculum that we just got. Dr. Perriello had reviewed them. Monday we have our meeting, and Doc Perriello, Chief O'Loughlin, and Amy Leone will be there to discuss how we can implement and all work as a team to get that into the curriculum. We also have Mrs. Haff, which is the health teacher at the Stacy School, which is a vulnerable age, which we'd like to hit. And she was interested in incorporating that into her curriculum in the fall, for the new semester.
Well, I have a question here. I know that you initiated a bylaw in town about, overcrowding apartments. And,
Right.
that was like first in the state, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Yes, it
Yeah,
was.
you're right.
And,
Well, it was a massive undertaking. Like I said, we had support from selectmen.
Yeah, we sponsored the article.
We have support, of course, that the board was all in very much supportive of it.
I know you got personally sued for that.
Yes, yeah, you're right. It was, that's why I'm on Xanax. But anyway, it was a massive undertaking where the town did support it. I believe it was like $40,000 that we got or more, where we hired an agency to actually come in and physically gain access to rental units, all rental units, whether it was one rental unit or several, and come in and measure. And what we did is we used the state building code and also the health code in a formula where it would more or less mandate space and use. So for habitable rooms. So for each habitable room, whatever the square footage was, X amount of square feet per occupant, that's how we came up with the maximum occupancy rate.
So did you find that this was absentee landlords mostly that created the situation, or not?
Well, it was non-owner occupied was most. There were a lot of Milford people.
There were some Milford.
And what was happening, I guess, because of the influx of the international residents that we were getting into town, some people took advantage of it. And what we had is, and at first we started with complaints. That's how we came about saying we need something a little more with some bite. Mm-hmm. And it started with complaints saying, in nice neighborhoods. I live in this neighborhood. It was always a great neighborhood, and the people next to me are causing a lot of blight. A lot of rubbish, a lot of cars, partying, all kinds of things. And when we were to go and investigate, and we actually wanted the landlord with us, for the effect too. It really helped. And they'd say, well, I couldn't afford the house as a two-family, but the realtor told me that if I make this dining room, I can make 2 rooms here, I can make 4 rooms in the living room, and collect from each person. Downstairs is a clean cellar, it's dry. You can make several rooms down there and charge, so that's what we've been seeing, so therefore we said there has to be something more to this, because it started to be now overwhelming. Of course, building department helped out, a selectman helped out by getting a policeman assigned to us, as well as a fireman assigned to us. We had a trilingual individual come with us to get us into the apartments, into the property. So it worked out well. Now, how do we know it's still working? How do we measure it? Well, I can measure it by actual, physical contact. I mean, you're at the Board of Health. Now you get people coming into the office, an attorney, a potential landlord, a realtor, to say, we understand you have a bylaw in town and it's pretty strict. We want to know how we can comply. We never had that before. You know, and of course, the applications or the certificates are renewable each year. And people say, well, why are they renewable each year? You know, I mean, well, real estate property changes constantly every day. You know, so we want to make sure that those records we have are up to date. But it's also a way to remind the property owners that, you know, this program is still in force and they still have a responsibility as a property owner to adhere to it.
So do you have some ongoing thing following up to make sure that this doesn't?
Oh, can I chime in?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you don't mind, because
Sure.
I know this is Paul's time, but
Yeah.
it's on the same topic. The Article 37 occupancy bylaw through the Board of Health, which is a general bylaw in the town of Milford, came in 2007, I believe, Paul?
Yes, it did, yeah.
At that time, I was only part-time with the Department of Inspections, but one of the things that I went forward with when I became full-time as building commissioner was under the state building code, any multifamily house, multifamily being 3 or above, is required to be inspected periodically by the building department at a maximum interval of 5 years. So at that point in 2012, or at some point in 2012, I was appointed at the end of, well, in September of 2011. We started sending out the applications, notifying people that these buildings need to be inspected periodically. That, you know, that's the actual term from the state. So now what we do, and we've been doing since 2012, is we're getting into every multifamily house in town. Well, we haven't got into every one yet, and we're coming close to the 5 years, but we've sent out the applications, and we are inspecting. We've inspected most multifamily houses and gotten into the interiors to see the conditions. And it's about public safety. It's not about the nuisances that we may have just been talking about. The purpose of the building code, as I've said, is public safety, and we've gotten in with a team of us from the building department, Board of Health, police, and fire to make sure that these apartments are safe for the tenants. But along with that, we're seeing, you know, the side effect, I guess, is that this is supposed to be a 3-family house. It is. This is supposed to be a 2-family house. There's an apartment in the attic. Well, that's not allowed. And we've made numerous people remove illegal dwelling units. And a number come to mind, but, you know, to Paul's point, these are all done without permits. Some are, you know, one person in particular was on Bancroft Ave, constructed an entire apartment in the basement that we had to move, completely remove. So these regulations go hand in hand, the building code, the periodic inspections with our Article 37 regulations, and us collaborating again as town officials. I just felt that was pertinent to the point we're at, so I wanted to add that.
And if you want to respond to Harold's question, what was that again, Harold?
You know, John, thank you very much. John, as Paul just said, you know, something that you feel over your tenure has been particularly successful for the building commissioner's office, and then on the other side, you know, things that you continue to worry about that, you know, need improvement.
Yeah, sure. I don't know which way I'd rate these, but I've done a number of things in my 5 years there, 6 years there, as a full-time building commissioner that I'm proud of. The first one being the department software that we purchased. It was approved in the fall of 2011 town meeting, and that gave us a complete department management software and database to track everything going forward. And we imported a lot of the stuff that was available prior to 2012, and that means now we track everything by parcel. So we open a parcel, we can see every building permit, every plumbing permit, gas, electrical permit. We can see every complaint that we've entered since then. We can see every inspection that's been done on a property. So it's been invaluable as a resource in terms of making our department much more efficient. We keep all electronic plans now going forward, and we scan in the paper application. So everything is right there. We still keep paper backups of sort of the critical paperwork, although we keep much more in an electronic format, and it's valuable as a scheduling tool and as a management tool. So I'm very proud of that, and I'm very happy that we had the support of the Board of Selectmen and town meeting members to purchase that. And I'm actually happy that we're now going to a cloud-based format of that software, which will allow us to have full access out in the field. They've had a mobile version or a mobile application for it, but a lot of the documents were not viewable out in the field because they're on our in-house service, where when it goes cloud-based, it'll be on the cloud service, and we can be much more efficient out in the field. Along with that, I'm equally proud of the work that the task force has done, the neighborhood task force, which was around long before I was building commissioner, but it was revitalized in 2011 at the inspirational request of Selectman DeBartolomé. So actually, prior to me even being appointed full-time, in the summer of 2011, we had a number of meetings with, again, with Dino, with Town Administrator, Lou Salazzi at the time, Paul, myself, Police Chief, Fire Chief, and we recognize the problems that we've been discussing here tonight. The dilapidated housing to an extent, the nuisances, just the general bad condition of a lot of properties, and it wasn't just Selectman DeBartolomé, it was Selectman Buckley, who I had a lot of conversations about at that time on properties, off of Water Street and such. So with that, we decided we'd be walking the streets weekly, and what we found when we walked the streets, we'd walk for an hour, and we'd have days worth of issues to resolve. And it was a lot of paperwork, it was a lot of letters, and it was I would say it was highly effective. And we still do that to this day. We don't do it as often as we did, and that's one of my concerns going forward. I've done plenty of memos and reports as such about the department activity from actually going back to 2005, which was, the housing boom, the building boom, and what all the data has shown is that, certainly it crashed 2008, 9, 10. We're getting slower and slower. The revenues that we brought in indicated that. The number of permits indicated that. And then it was gradually building, 2011, 12, 13. 14 took a big jump. 15 and 16 were by far the busiest years that we've ever had in the building department, going back to the heyday of 04, 05, 06. So my concern right now is the resources that we have, staff resources. And we are required by statute to act on permits in a certain number of, in a timely manner, to perform inspections in a certain number of days, and those are not negotiable, so to speak. So staffing is my biggest concern in my department right now, and it's something I've begun discussions with Town Administrator as we come into budget season, as we look into the permit fees that are being turned over to the treasurer, to increase our staff with the purpose of focusing primarily on the safety inspections, the periodic inspections that are required, again, by statute, and the task force inspections, and the overall, that overall area of focus.
Anything else?
No?
Open it up again. Anybody else have questions from the audience?
I have one question. On the inspections on the multifamily houses, are they ever inspected more often than the 5 years that you mentioned?
Currently, no, but it would be my goal to, or it is my goal to, I guess let me back up. We haven't found a whole lot of, well, if you're generalizing with the thousands of multifamilies we haven't found a significant number of violations to justify doing it more than 5 years at this point. So right now, no, I don't see the need. When you couple that with, that's what we're required to do. Whenever we have a complaint or an observation from a resident that there's a problem at a house, then we go and inspect it and we act on that. And one of the things I've been telling people for years is that in your neighborhood, you know what's going on more than most people. more than us driving by or making an appointment to schedule something when something could be staged or removed or something else. If it's, you know, certainly illegal construction can't be removed, but not quickly. But we like to hear from the residents, voice your concerns, and we'll go and inspect, you know, every time we hear a complaint.
So routinely, if someone doesn't call and complain, then it's not going to get done more often than 5 years.
As far as the periodic inspection required by the building code, not at this time, no. There's no inspiration to do that right now.
So if you do find a fault, will you go back sooner if there was a problem?
Well, we have the ability that if we find a fault that we think may be recurring, I'm not required to give it a 5-year certificate. I can give it as little as a 1-year certificate. So, you know, we may treat some circumstances different than we generally treat these inspections. You know, when there's a problem, we want to keep our hand on them.
But if you give a 1-year certificate, do you then go and re-inspect before you reissue another 1-year?
Yes. Not only do we have to certify it in that time period, we're required to inspect it. So we can't just pass out a certificate without doing the inspection.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Other questions? Who's got a question for either the health director or the building director?
I have a list.
Just one at a time,
Actually-
Jerry.
I know.
Jerry's been busy.
Actually, so we had a number of people email us with questions, people who weren't able to attend tonight. But the first one was just given to me a few minutes ago by somebody who was here but had to leave. So her question is, please explain the difference between blight and the nuisance bylaw. What would be the process to address a homeowner about a nuisance violation? For example, lot drainage, excessive junk. She says drainage is a public nuisance and serious safety hazard. And what is the process for a blight violation?
Okay, so something like drainage is not part of our nuisance bylaw. Nuisances are defined in the bylaw. It's Article 31 of our town bylaws, and it's fairly specific, and it needs to be a health hazard. Now, if you're talking, the drainage that you're talking about is probably covered under some other regulations that,
Yeah.
you know, the town, either the highway department or town engineer might enforce, but it's nothing that my department would enforce, and I don't think it's something that Halls wouldn't. Well, you know, I don't want to speak for Paul.
Well, the only way we'd get involved as a health department is if the drainage is causing stagnant water.
Okay.
You know, like a consistent stagnant pool, which could be conducive to the breeding of mosquitoes, especially during the mosquito season. You know, then we could call that a nuisance and a potential health hazard. It's not just ugly. It's also a potential health hazard because mosquitoes, as we know, carry diseases, and that's where they breed.
Right. So if we go back to the original part of the question, could you explain the difference between blight and the nuisance bylaw? Or is blight covered within
Yeah.
that bylaw?
I would say it is general.
Yeah,
Blight,
well,
hand in hand.
blight's not strictly defined in the nuisance bylaw, but there has to be a violation that's causing some health or safety concern. So if the grass is too long, it's not health, it's not blight. It might be in the general definition or somebody's perceived definition of it, but if the grass is too long and hasn't been mowed, or the bushes haven't been trimmed, we had a house where we had a resident that was complaining several times. There was a tree that fell over in a storm, and then somebody came and cut up all the limbs and kind of condensed it, but it's in a pile in the front yard. It's certainly not, you know, a pleasant sight, but there was no health or safety concern with that tree. Most people probably wouldn't complain about that tree if it was in somebody's backyards near the woods line. It's the same physical condition, and there's, you know, it's just not a violation, you know, and there's really no hazard or safety concern. And I'd agree, it's not how I would keep my yard. It's not what I would like to look at as a neighbor, but it's not a regulation that we have there's no regulation that we can use to make someone get rid of it.
Right.
And then along with that, and this is applicable to this particular property, is that Our enforcement lies with the property owner. There's a lot of times where houses are in foreclosure, the owners that are on the deed are gone. Some of them are out of the country. We don't have the enforcement mechanism to bring, we can't get somebody to court because our enforcement goes through first, warning letters, and 90% of the time that or more will gain us compliance. It might take a couple letters, it might take the threat of a fine, and then the next thing we do is we go to court. We either go to district court and file an application for criminal complaint, or we go to housing court in Worcester, but we have to have somebody to bring there. And unfortunately, sometimes there isn't anybody. So it's a violation, but we don't have a means to resolution. And they work out eventually because they become foreclosed on. Then we'll have a bank that we do have some enforcement with, and they typically have property managers that want to keep their properties in compliance. But there is a period where it's still in the owner's name, it's in a foreclosure process, but we can't deal with the bank yet. They don't own it, and the owner is just gone. So that's frustrating. And again, eventually it works itself out, but there could be a period of months or even years where we don't have really any effective means for resolution.
Okay. All right, before I continue on the list, does anybody else in the audience have a question that if you do, just raise your hand and I'll be happy to pass the microphone on to somebody else. Okay, so the first question from email is, I don't understand the complicated news sign regulations. Would you please explain in simple terms that we can follow easily? And how do political signs get impacted by the new sign regulations?
Sure. I actually can't explain it easily. I'm sorry, it is complex. And I did my best. I put out a sign summary and frequently asked questions page that I think should address every issue. It addresses every issue that I could come up with.
And is that on the town website?
That is on the town
So a
website.
citizen could go to the Town of Milford website and then go to the building department and find it there?
I don't. Yes, it's on the building site, and it might be on the home page under the selectmen's page. But so I really can't generalize. But if we talk about any one or multiple number of or types of signs, I can address those. So political signs. The typical political sign that says John Erickson for school committee or selectmen or whatever, that's a sign advertised in a one-time event. And the regulation is specific that portable and temporary signs are not permitted except for advertising a one-time event. So the one-time event is the election in April. In that case, they can go out 45 days before the event, and they need to be removed within 72 hours after the event.
Is there a size limit?
There is a size limit of 6 square feet, which is larger than the typical political sign.
So that's less than 6 square feet, right?
I don't know. 2 by 3 is 6 square feet, so yes.
Okay,
So that's 6 square feet.
Or smaller?
Yes. So that's allowed up to 45 days before an event, and you're allowed 1 per property, except during the months of March, April, September, October, and November, in which case you can have 4.
4.
And I believe that was inspired by the desire to allow the typical political signs that we've always had in
And
Milford.
this is on private property?
This is on residential property.
Residential, so not private commercial and not town-owned?
Right. The signs are prohibited on town-owned property, with a couple of exceptions, but for the direction that we're going right now, they're prohibited on town property.
I think the important thing is that
Now-
you can get on the website and
Yeah.
get a-
Right.
So, but to go on a little further, I had a question this week from a candidate. The one-time event could be his fundraiser or kickoff party or whatever. That's coming this Saturday. He can put it out today, when he could have put it out, 30 or 40 days ago. So it's specific to the one-time event. Now, moving on to commercial, on a commercial or industrial property, those signs we just discussed are prohibited, period. And what they do allow is a banner up to 30 days before the event. I don't know the logic of why that's allowed or different, but that's what we're allowed right now.
Can I ask a follow-up to that?
Sure.
So could that be, if on commercial property, a banner can go up, does it have to be, okay, so we're talking about like at the Toyota dealership, that's commercial property. So if they're putting up a banner, is it something, an event at their dealership? Or could we ask Toyota to put up a banner for our candidates?
It's content neutral, so we can't, it's content neutral. It is content neutral, but it has, with that said, this seems counterintuitive, but it has to be advertising a one-time event.
But if it's on commercial property, it doesn't have to, the event is
It doesn't have to
not
be related to Toyota.
to whatever.
No, on the Toyota property, they could put a banner up that says Citizens for Milford, get together at the library
Okay.
February 8th.
Okay.
But they can't just put by Toyota. You know, that.
But it has to be a banner, it can't be a sandwich board, for
It can't be a sandwich board, it can't be a stick-in-the-ground temporary sign, it has to be a banner.
A banner. Okay.
Like I said, this is not easy to summarize.
Right.
Or it's not easy and it's not quick.
Yeah. Okay, next question from email. I understand that John and Paul lead a group of town officials that look into rundown properties and crowding. This is a theme. I want to report several in my neighborhood, but I don't want to be targeted as a troublemaker. How do I make a complaint? Will you keep it confidential? What do you do in response? Who do I talk to if nothing gets done? Do you keep a record of the actions?
Yeah, we do. And John would too. Yeah, if she has, if he or she has some concerns with some homes that they may have a question whether they're in violation or not, they can just call us up and we'll make sure that it's on our list and we'll get to it, as soon as we can.
I gather from that question, though, that the person wants to remain anonymous.
Oh, sure, of course, right.
Well, can I chime in?
Sure.
If that information is available to us of who made the complaint and it's requested of us, we have to provide that. That's come up, not with me, but with our former town engineer in a situation that I can't remember the details of. But if we have the information and it's requested, we do have to provide it. So if you call me and say, hi John, it's Jerry, and my neighbor has an unregistered car, and we go in and write the person a letter or knock on their door, whatever, however we respond to it, and they say who complained, we do have to.
Yeah, but
We
she
do.
could say, I want to remain anonymous and not say it's Jerry.
She can, and
Then you wouldn't have the information and therefore it would remain anonymous.
and we do. I mean, there's varying schools of thought on whether or not to react to anonymous complaints. But in my capacity, especially where it's mostly safety related, I go and investigate them. So you don't have to. And with that said, I can't remember any time that somebody said, well, who complained? I mean, I can't remember a specific. I know somebody's asked. I don't know what the response was because I don't remember the situation, but it's not often. Most people are focusing on, okay, why is it a violation? Can you give me some time, or what can I do to resolve it? Depends on the nature of the violation. But that's how that's how I handle it.
Yeah, in the Board of Health, we do respond to anonymous complaints because we feel as though, what if we did ignore them and then something happens down the road? So, we would make the bona fide attempt just to go down there and see what's happening. I even think there's something somewhere in our state sanitary code when it comes to housing that we do have to respond to anonymous complaints in certain types of situations.
Okay.
Can I answer something? The thing I would add is, depending on the complaint, if it's on something within the inside of a house, we contact the owner, we request to get in to investigate it. If we're not allowed to, we have the option to go and get an administrative warrant at the courthouse to get in, but we need to bring enough evidence to the judge to justify us getting into this property.
Okay. Next question. I want to make some minor improvement to my chimney, which is 2 feet or higher, Do I have to get a building permit, and how much would it cost?
What does the 2 feet mean? So I can answer in a more general sense.
Okay.
Ordinary repairs do not require a building permit. So if you're going to replace some trim around your front door, or a few boards on your deck that are broken, or balusters, or, the top of your chimney is, a little deteriorated and needs, the bricks to be reset, that would be something, those will all be examples of things that I would call ordinary repairs, and you're not required to have a building permit. I would typically judge each thing case by case as it's presented to me. But to answer the question about permit cost, the permit fees are based on cost of construction. We have a $40 minimum for residential, which in the permit fee is $6 per thousand. So if you're going to have, if you're going to be under $6,600, it's a $40 minimum fee. After that, if it's $10,000, it's $60 and so on. And the commercial rate is just $1 more per thousand. It's $7 per thousand.
Okay. Okay. Paul, this question is for you. Do you make regular inspections of Milford restaurants? How often? Do you let the public know the results so we can pick where to eat out?
Sure. Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, out of the 140 or so establishments that we have, there's a minimum requirement set by the state sanitary code of 2 per year per establishment. Milford does 4 to 5. Sometimes more. If there's an establishment that we feel as though is high risk, meaning the various actions that they got to go through to prepare, when each step could more or less be conducive to microbiological growth, we would then do that more often. If they're serving a population, that's elderly or immunocompromised, we again, make sure we go there quite often, because like I mentioned earlier, that inspection is only good for that point in time. And as of putting them out, we send all our reports to the patch and also the Milford Town Crier as well.
Okay.
Really?
Mhm, yeah, it's a synopsis of what we actually found.
Yeah.
Are you allowed to call the department and ask about a certain place?
Sure. Oh, yeah, everything is, that inspection report will be public record. So if you even have the time, let's say you're upstairs paying taxes or whatever, and you want to come down to the Board of Health to check the file on a specific restaurant or any establishment you want, we'll have it all for you.
Okay.
I have a follow-up to that somebody else sent in. In many cities, restaurants are being required to post litter grades based on cleanliness in their windows. This would be a very good incentive for these establishments to keep up with regulations. Would your board consider implementing such a practice?
At one time, we thought about it, but I myself personally don't think it's a good idea, and why is that? Is because, again, you're going to go to an establishment. Again, I always remember that. I always said I'd like to repeat myself for effectiveness. That point in time. So I may go to your restaurant and it's an A. 2 or 3 weeks from now, it's probably a D. So now that A is going to remain there until we come there again. And like I said, the most we do is 4 to 5 a year. So that's several months that particular restaurant is fooling the public with that A. So to me, I don't think, it looks good. The public can look, oh, they got an A. They got an A because of that one day. You know what I'm trying to say? So when everything has to be reasonable and common sense when it comes to this. I know most cities and towns do that. Your larger cities, New York, Los Angeles, whatever. And you get that blue A in there, and it looks great, and it's great for business. But you don't know what's behind that door in that kitchen at any point in time. It's not always an A.
Right. Okay. John, I have another question about the sign bylaw.
Sure.
The new sign laws are creating a real hardship for nonprofits that rely on publicizing their events in order to raise money. How can this be rectified?
I don't know that it necessarily does cause a hardship, because as we just talked about, depending on what's being advertised, it could be advertised on any commercial property. Most of the ones that were I guess I'd need kind of a specific example maybe to elaborate, but
My observation is a lot of the nonprofits, they use the sandwich boards, and they put them out, like the theater group or the Boy Scouts, and they put it out for a month, and they put it on public, town property at an intersection, to be frank. But I think that's how, they're sort of nickel and dime operations, and losing the ability to put sandwich boards out for a 30-day period has been a real detriment, even for our group. For our group, that was one of the things that we found was very successful in getting the word out, and now really that's prohibited.
yeah, it is, but I guess that's probably more a question for the planning board because they developed that regulation. And these regulations that I enforce are not necessarily something that I agree with or would have written in such form, but that's what was written and that's what I have to enforce. So
we have to go back to town meeting ultimately to make an exception for sandwich boards for 30 days.
yeah, and it would. And the planning board put in an inordinate amount of hours on this bylaw, and there was a lot of misconceptions about it. In fact, I didn't completely digest it until after it was approved by the Attorney General when I started doing my sign summary and realized that, it took me a few hours to do my summary. I collaborated with town council and town planner being integrally involved with developing the bylaw with the planning board, and of course town council with the interpretation. And the three of us sat there for a period of time going through these things as I was writing the summary, and it's intricate, but it's not exactly what I thought we were getting, and I think there's that opinion shared by a lot of people. At one point there was a proposal to allow a temporary sign on every property, and that changed, and a resident brought that to my attention, and I said, well, you're right, I thought that was the case at one point too. So maybe it does need some revision, and this resident has been talking about making a proposal. I don't know, we're now in the warrant just got opened on Monday night for articles, and I don't know if something may be brought forward to town meeting for change, and really that's what it's about. It's what do we want as a community. But keep in mind that this, our new bylaw was inspired by the Supreme Court of the United States decision back in June of 2015 that signs have to be content neutral, and there was quite a summary written on that decision, and we have to decide what we want. We can't single out that you can have the political signs are exempt, which was the case in our previous sign bylaw. Political signs were exempt. They free pass anything you want politically. That's not constitutional, so we as a community and they as the planning board and the sponsor had to develop a bylaw that is constitutional, and that's part of the challenge. And we have to keep in mind that if we're going to allow your sign advertised in this event as an A-frame or a temporary sign, then pretty much everything goes. It can't be about your event or something. It can't be about a nonprofit group. It can be, the stump grinding, the landscaping, the paving, the driveway sealing, the ABC Construction Company. It can't be based on content. And I said earlier it was kind of counterintuitive when you say it does allow for temporary signs advertised in a one-time event, but the decision and the opinions written by the justices equated the one-time event with the same as regulating a sign for a one-time event, similar to allowing a certain level of noise at certain hours or lighting or other zoning ordinances like that. And again, it's complex.
Okay. I have a few more. Before I go on, does anybody?
You're doing great.
Oh. But raise your hand. Okay. In April, we do a beautification day, and we work in conjunction with your department. And one of the things that we often pick up are TVs, and you give the transfer station permission for us to just bring in those TVs without having to pay for it. I'm wondering, we had talked about this last year after Beautification Day, in my neighborhood right now, there is a big TV that somebody just left outside, and it's falling apart. Is there some way for Good Samaritans to pick up TVs that they just happen to see and take them to the transfer station without having to pay the fee?
Yeah, providing that that's not an excuse for everybody who wants to get rid of a TV.
Right,
You know, hey, they just do it in front of my yard. But, yeah, I mean, we will definitely work with any resident who's trying to help their neighborhood, as well as we did with the cleanup day.
Yeah.
One of the things with TVs, you get lead in the cathode ray tubes, and that's a hazardous waste, and we consider TVs to be a special waste. It's not picked up at curbside with your regular rubbish anymore. It has to be handled on a separate basis. The only thing is, like with most recycling, it started off great, but as time went on, there's not that many people in the business. It's not that cost effective anymore. So there's not very far and few in between. I think there's only like 3 or maybe 4 within the whole state that actually handles the CRTs. And luckily, Milford does have one that we had before when things were good. It started off as like 9 to 10 cents a pound to get rid of the TV. Now it's 25 to 30 cents a pound. So you take your regular good-sized console TV, that's costing close to $60, $70, $80, $100 sometimes, and we charge $20. So the town ourselves, we take a beating every time someone wants to get rid of a TV. You know, God forbid for free, we're taking a bigger beating. But anyway, you know, again, it's something that we have to provide, that we want to do. We're not in the business of making a profit. That's not what we're all about. But yeah, we'll do anything we can. Like I said, if there's a TV in someone's neighborhood that's dilapidated, it was put there illegally and no one is showing ownership to it, you know, we'll definitely, if someone wants to take it down to the transfer station, give us a call. Okay. And we'll definitely call the transfer station attendants and make sure that, you know, it's a very easy thing to do. Okay?
Okay, good. I have 2 more.
Sure.
These are actually from me and not from email anymore. Textile recycling, I think I read something about that within the last year.
Right.
Is there a station where we
Yes,
can take?
yeah, we got into textile, and why we're expanding our horizons with recycling is that, again, recycling started off great. I mean, we get our rewards by the amount of tonnage that we recycle, and right now tonnage isn't like it used to be. The materials that weighed a lot were your paper and your glass. Now people are getting their newspaper and magazines on the computer. So they're not buying paper and magazines that much anymore, and that was the heaviest material that we recycle, and that's going down. Glass was second, and that's replaced, as you could see, by a lot of plastics. So the weight, the volume's there, but the weight is not, and that's just not Milford, that's throughout the whole country, really. A lot of everybody's recycling tonnage is going down because of that reason. So what we try to do as a Board of Health is think outside the box, get rid of that paradigm, and say, okay, we need to do more. So if, you know, we can have all the volume we want, but how do we get rid of the bulky materials that's causing a lot of weight in our rubbish? So let's make it so where we can recycle textiles.
Right.
So that's what we did, and we have a box down at the transfer station, and there's no, if you're going to just recycle the textiles, we don't require a permit or a fee, so you can just go in and do that. We also try to have that throughout the town, and what we were going to use was the schools. And the company that we have, Bay State Textiles, they pay us X amount of dollars a ton for this material, and we were going to have it at each school, and each school, whatever they recycle, they were going to be able to keep. So we thought that was a great thing. We're getting rid of a bulky item out of the waste stream. It's keeping our tonnage down, and it's also helping the schools, and we're recycling. So everything is you know, it was a win-win for everybody. When we try to do that, we were stopped by zoning because most of the schools are in a residential area, and you can't have these types of bins there, and not even with a variance. So we had to put a stop to that. We even tried to have a special, article, and Jerry said no, because now we're opening up a can of worms.
Yeah, we tried to, if I could just...
Yeah.
We tried to almost justify it or qualify it as a municipal use, which is allowed, throughout the town. But, if you look close, it doesn't pass the test of a municipal use, so the containers aren't allowed. And then we had the added burden of, even if we could justify it, which we didn't feel that we could from a legal aspect, then it needed to go through the public procurement process. We can't just have a company come and say, hey, we're going to put these here. We have to put it out, an RFP or an RFQ and go through that public procurement. But again, the zoning bylaw doesn't allow it. It doesn't allow it anyway. So we had a couple of different obstacles that we couldn't overcome to bring those in. But on the surface, it seemed like a win-win, like Paul said.
So just at the transfer station.
So right now, yeah, so the short answer is at the transfer station.
And what can you put in there?
Anything, shoes, shirts,
Leather.
leather, pocketbooks.
Rugs?
Pardon me?
Rugs?
No, you don't. No, you want to put rugs in there.
That's not a textile?
No,
No, okay.
that's something else. but anyway, one other thing that we're going to be doing this year too is we're going to be recycling mattresses and box springs, another bulk heavy item that people put out at curbside that again adds to the weight. And there's a pretty good market for recyclable mattresses and box springs. And we got a grant, and that grant gives us 2 years free. They're going to provide a container for us, and they're going to provide a contractor to pick it up and take it away for us as well.
Awesome.
Okay?
Yeah, that's cool. I have one more.
Sure.
All right. This goes back to the whole rooming house thing. I'm wondering if someone has a 3-4 bedroom, just regular one-family house, and they decide that they want to start renting bedrooms on Airbnb, what are the regulations for that?
That's not allowed by the zoning bylaw.
It's not?
Renting.
Okay.
What is allowed is having a roommate. You own a house, you can have a roommate, you can have 2, you can have 3. What is prohibited are rooming houses. There are a small number, less than 10, I believe, in town that are legal. They predate the zoning bylaw, and it's legal to rent a room. You rent a room, you have a shared bathroom, you may have a private, you have a shared kitchen, but those are the true rooming houses. And we do write up some properties for having illegal rooming houses where we go there, we do an inspection, we find out that one guy is renting a room from the landlord, and another guy is renting a room as a landlord, and it's not a traditional roommate situation. Some of the indications are the key locks on a bedroom, a separate refrigerator in each bedroom, and we'll ask, and we typically get true responses, and if we don't, we'll make our own decision and decide which way to move forward. But so the Airbnb is not allowed in Milford at this point.
Let me ask this question. Let's say somebody has a condo at Shadowbrook, right? And they want to rent out that condo, to somebody for a week or 2 weeks or a month. They're not going to be living there. They're just renting it, just like they do now. They may be renting it from an owner. So if they advertised on Airbnb a Shadowbrook apartment for a month or for the winter, that doesn't seem like it would be prohibited.
No, that's allowed.
So it's allowed if it's a whole living. If it's a room, it's not allowed. If it's a separate room within a house, that's not allowed. But if it's a condo or a single-family house or an apartment, that would be allowed.
Correct. Yeah. Again, the traditional roommate.
Yeah, that's not what I'm talking about.
That's not what you're-
I'm talking about a house on my street that was just recently sold, and my neighbor has called.
I know which house it is.
I know you know about it, but I don't know exactly
No, not
what
all-
the regulations are.
Yeah, so in that house, and I know which house it is, and I know the owner, and we had a couple of issues there. We had the fact that he was advertising and renting on Airbnb, which we
Yes.
told him is prohibited, and he ceased that use, as far as I know. We did do a fairly thorough investigation. He was also building an addition without a building permit.
Right.
And we shut him down for, first of all, we told him he was in violation, and it took us over 2 months to have him submit a successful application to get the building permit, because he said from where he comes from, you just do this stuff. You don't need permission. And it's in Massachusetts, but it was Western Massachusetts. And that may be the case, but we really, really struggled with him to gain compliance. And there was no reason he couldn't get it,
Right.
other than you need to submit the proper documents, paperwork, plot plan, showing that you have the minimum yard requirements and setbacks, and that the structure meets building code, that it has the right size floor joists and ceiling joists and insulation and everything else that goes with a property. And he that particular one really did struggle.
Right, but I mean, I just wanted to be clear that the concept of Airbnb operates in Milford, Massachusetts, and is legally allowed to, as long as it's, somebody renting an apartment or a full condo or a single-family house, the way they do across the world, right? People go onto the Airbnb website and
Well, I'm not super familiar with Airbnb, but I thought that was more of a, you want to rent a room for 2 days or a week, or you're traveling.
It's not just a room.
Well, so again, I'm not super familiar with it.
For instance, it could be a condo in New York City for a week, and so people are doing this all the time.
Yeah, I'd have to get together with town council and go over some more details, but what you're saying doesn't seem to be prohibited off the top.
Right, people
At first sight.
do it instead of staying in a hotel or something like that. So it just sounds like we need maybe some more clarification.
Does anybody else have any questions or anything else you... In back.
Hi, I'm Annie Anonymous. I have a question for Mr. Mazzuchelli, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing.
No, you're doing
your
well.
name.
That's good.
In terms of trash, is there any kind of regulation about people putting their trash out in buckets, whatever we call those things we put our trash in, but not covering them, and then it builds up all week long until it's spilling over all over
Yeah,
the place? And I have
that-
at least 4 houses on my street
Yeah.
where people do it.
I mean, the improper storage of trash is a problem. Like I said, if it's overflowing and it's causing a nuisance with, odors and unsightliness where, it could be...
There's a lot of raccoons.
That's what I'm gonna say, if it could be, if it could be conducive to rodents and insects and whatnot, then that would be a problem for us to at least go down and take a look and to adjudicate to make sure that, if in fact it is a violation or a condition that could be.
So it doesn't have to be covered then? People don't
It should be
have to
covered.
cover it?
In a perfect world, yes. But to actually go through town to make sure everyone has their rubbish covered would be a physical impossibility. But yeah, sometimes.
Well, I can give you 5
Right,
addresses now.
but sometimes common sense, a lot of the residents would have to have, more common sense than enforcement. You know what I mean? That's what I would hope would prevail.
Well, Paul, in relation to this, is it okay for people to just leave their trash barrels out on the side?
No, absolutely not. No,
And that goes on,
The way-
too. There's one house right now, our trash day was on Tuesday.
Yeah.
They're empty barrels, 3 families, 1 barrel. The empty barrel is on the street. We don't have sidewalks, on
Yeah.
the street. And so now they're just throwing their little bags of trash and everything against the house.
Yeah.
And this goes on
Yes,
all the time.
something like that is wrong. Like I said, something like that I would have to take a look at and talk to the people and make sure it's taken care of. But no, like what Mr. Treadle was saying, do people have the right to leave their rubbish out at curbside all week long? No, they can't be doing that either. Rubbish has to be properly stored prior to collection, where it doesn't create a health hazard or a nuisance. So that's what we'd have to look at to make sure that fits that particular reg. What else? I was going to mention something about that too, about the, I forgot. But anyway, yeah, but I hope I answered your question there. Thank you.
Anybody else? We thank everybody for being here, and we thank those that submitted their questions. And we especially thank Paul and John for being here and
Thank you for having us.
really
Thanks.
educating us.
It was good.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.